Hey there guys, it's the Sentinel from across the tabletop. I just wanted to give you a quick update of what I did at the weekend with my Imperial Fists. Went to a tournament at Twisted Dice, the guys running it, called Twisted Dice Onslaught Oblivion. Fantastic, 30 players, 6 games over 2 days. Incredible bunch of lists, incredible bunch of guys down there. Fantastic venue, fantastic tables. You've seen my overview of the army in the video. You'll see the army that I took. Just quickly go over what I've got. I've got the chapter master with the buffs. You go back and review the videos I did on it. I did a whole list review on it. And then I've got the tech marine to buff up the contemptors, and then an ancient to buff up anybody charging, that counter charge sort of aspect, and the suppressors and the eliminators, if need to, they can sit there and get to shoot back, which came into effect in quite a few of the games actually. I've got the Leviathan with a close combat weapon system, and then his auto cannon array, and then the plasma cannon redemptor with 2 quad heavy bolters, and this one unit of suppressors, 1 unit of eliminators, 1 unit of 10 assault bolter intercessors, and then 2 units of close combat assault intercessors, with some servitors, of course, just to do that engage or rod or whatever secondary I need them to do at that time. So that's the overall general list. I'll go into more detail on how I play it in my previous videos. So if you want to go and check that out, that'd be fantastic. If you're liking what I'm doing, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the sub, and then drop us a comment in the bottom what you want us to talk about, how you feel the list could go better, what you're enjoying about the content I'm producing. I would love to find out how you guys are doing in your own tournaments, and what you're finding works and what doesn't, and what unit you think is probably the best for the Imperial Fist to maximise its efficiency on. So I went to the tournament. In my personal opinion, I went there wanting to win it, set myself a goal to come top 5, because I wanted to win, but if I didn't win, my second goal was top 5 or podium. So I went with the mindset that if I can just achieve podium place or come top 5, I think I'd have ticked my goals essentially. So turned up on day 1. Kick off, the first dice down was at 9 o'clock, quite an early start, but it put the whole environment into perspective. And actually, if you can get the game started at 9, you can finish quite early. I think everybody was wrapped up by 5 o'clock in the evening. So the potential 5, 6 o'clock potential to actually squeeze 4 games in one day isn't actually out of the question if you can get the start going early enough. So first game was against Tal. James is the player's name I went up against. A fantastic gentleman. I'm not going to take anything away from him. The army he brought was I would say on the side of being in that area to compete at the moment with everybody's lacking, should we say, not lacking. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say with everybody with the readjustment in the balance, the Tau at the moment have quite a nice position where they can come in, find out what they're good at again, because they can come back and test the waters and punch higher than you'd expect them to. So I went first in that game. I deployed. It was a diagonal deployment, which meant that it was game 33 priority target. Now you would have thought priority target is quite an easy one. You put the objective in each of its corners, you hold it for 15, and there's 15 points on secondary, and at least you can get 20 points on primary. So it's quite a balanced game, this one, in that sense. But I went first. I deployed, I would say, quite aggressively, and I wasn't expecting this from James, to be honest. He deployed more aggressively than I did, being the Tau player, and I got a little bit cocky. That would be the word I used. Cocky, overconfident in my gun line to his gun line, and positioned all of my units to be able to do the maximum damage because I got turn 1, and I didn't actually affect his gun line as much as I thought I was going to do, and his return fire was just absolutely on par. He's right, Dole Rice. His rolling of dice was just amazing. My armor saves were atrocious across the board in this game, but that doesn't take away what he did as a gamer, as a commander, as a leader of his army. You know, I can't take anything away from the guy. He played phenomenal. It ended up a loss to the Imperial Fist, the first loss of the tournament against James. He scored 87 points to my 53. So I think that's pretty respectable of 53 to a loss, considering I lost half my forces in turn 1 to his overwhelming firepower from the missile pods and stuff like that, and the 2 Riptides he was running. He did suicide one of his commanders, but it did mean he got to take down another dreadnought. And then I had to deal with the commander in the subsequent phases, where I would have liked to have been able to do something else. Great player. Not taking anything away. That's the first loss, wins to him. Went straight into game 2 with a lunch break, and we had some fantastic pizza brought down to us. So thanks very much for that, Twisted Dice, sorting that out for us. And the second game was against John. He was playing his freebooters list. This was, I would say, it was orcs, and I wouldn't say it was a top. I wouldn't, because it is up there with the orcs list and the freebooters sense. In what the freebooters are doing, I don't think he spammed anything in particular. He went with quite a balanced, in my opinion, freebooters list. The 2 buggies, 3 scrapjets, Rucker Truck Shuck, one with the Psyker on the back, this massive truck. The two flyers, one with a Dakadet, one with the blaster booster bombs, the mech essentially. 2 commandos units, and then 2 bosses, one on a war trike, which was almost impossible to kill, and a few other bits and pieces as well. I think he had some the death copters. So he had quite a balanced, all-rounded list. The terrain favoured myself more, because we had 2 great big pieces of the terrain. Now, this wasn't using the GT type style terrain pieces. Twisted Dice had already said, we've got our own tables, we've got our own terrain pieces. We're not going out there to make it the same as everybody else's tournament. Come down, enjoy the terrain, and be a commander in every single situation. So we had some really big pieces of terrain in the middle of the board, and some smaller terrain in our deployment zones in the corners. But this smaller terrain, actually, he couldn't hide his 2 buggies behind, but he did have a -1 from a forest nearby, so he put them that side so he can get the -1, still hide behind it. But I was able to go first, which meant that my Leviathan could come out, and I had a quad heavy bolt and something else that could take out the 2 buggies, and they did that quite efficiently. We had to spend CP to get it done, with the +1 to wound from the vehicle stratagem, tank hunters. But I was able to take out his buggies sitting at the back, and one of the flyers, the anti-tank flyer from the booster bomber, and I think I've got a scrapjet as well. But it just meant that when it came to his turn, it wasn't as, in my opinion, as deadly as it should have been. He did counter quite hard. He underestimated the intercessors, which was in my favour, because the intercessors then could come along and do the re-rolls, shoot everything, kill something, charge something, kill something in the charge phase, and be in the middle of the board. So I was able just to pull off a win in this one, going first. I did take over for moments. So it was surround and destroy. I did win 80 to 71. Don't get me wrong, John pushed really well and did really well. I was just able to outscore him on the secondaries. He did really well. He got more points on primaries than me, but I was able to just outscore him on the secondaries because he took Stranglehold and Assassination. I was able to hide my characters more. I'm only taking 3, so it's only 10 points on Assassination. You stop your 1 or 2 of those characters not being killed, and before you know it, you're getting 3 points if you're lucky. So Race of Banners, because I moved quite aggressively in my turn 1, I was actually able to take down one of his banners, and that just, of course, wasn't helpful towards the later games. Thank you, Eliminators, supposedly. Okay, so that was the sort of game. I did make a 9-inch charge with the Assault Intercessors, which is what brought his banners down in turn 3. So, a 9-inch charge from the Assault Intercessors, and then just killing the commandos on the back objective really helped to push the Imperial Fist win at that point. So I put pressure on his back lines, where he then had to come back with one of his tank boys in the truck. Instead of having to push onto my lines into the middle, he had to push backwards. So it allowed me to keep the momentum going forward. I don't make that charge, and I think he has the upper hand, and it switches towards the end of the game for John to win that. So great player, great result for my loss and win on day one. And then we went into game 3. This was against Steve and his Imperial Knights. This was with the new balance, so his armigers had OBSEC. He'd also paid a couple of extra warlord traits to take his 2 larger knights to have OBSEC as well. There were the Forge World weapon systems on the bigger knights, and the armigers had melters and the auto cannons, which he could then overcharge and do multiple damage. Again, I think, I'm not saying that the Twisted Dice terrain didn't affect the game, but he wasn't able to hide the 2 knights. It was mission 31 overrun, so it was a Dawn of War deployment. Again, 2 large pieces of terrain in the middle, and then 2 large pieces in the corner actually. So it's 3 large pieces, 1 in the middle on each side. That was in no man's land, and then 2 in the deployment zone on this board in particular. He was able to hide 1 of his knights in the middle, and then the 2 armigers on the either side, but the train had windows, so once he moved into the train pieces with the windows, I was able to see, and he was able to see me, which is the downfall of the knights. If you just want to sit on an objective and not be shot at, the train needs to have 0 windows, and this one had windows in, so as soon as he touched the objective, I was able to see him. So I took turn 1, taking down 1 of the big knights. It took all the army to take down 1 big knight, and then of course that just makes the massive effect on Steve. Then losing 1 of his big knights in turn 1 without doing 0 damage is a massive downfall to the knights itself. So he then countered. He killed 1 of my contemptors with the big knights. The smaller knights came out and took both of my quad heavy bolts out, because I put those on the wing so to distract him, and it worked. They did. It was an easy kill. He got them. I think he did take grind them down, so I think that's why he did it. Yeah, he took grind them down. He scored grind them down for that, because he took I only took 1 down. He took 3 units essentially. But having his big knight then line up in front of my army again, I was able to just put 1 of the contemptors back into Devastated Doctrine, put them in all doctrines essentially, and then just rinse and repeat the big knight. Steve had some really unfortunate overcharge. So when the knights overcharge for the additional damage on 1 of their weapons, they take D3 mortar wounds, and for 3 of his armigers, he took 3 mortar wounds on each in turn 1, and then again in turn 2 another 3. So essentially these armigers were killing themselves more than I was. And then when finally I got a chance to shoot them, once I took the big knight down in turn 3, there was only a couple of wounds left on them, and I was just able to pick them off quite lightly with some of the firepower that I had left. It was a resounding win for the Imperial Fist at 91-21. Steve was, I think I hurt his feelings really, but I do apologise, Steve. It was a great game. I know it wasn't an enjoyable game for both of us, because the state of play within the 2 factions are just not balanced enough, and I think it's a bit fairer. It's a bit more interesting if you go first and there's no line of sight for the buildings. But hopefully they'll get an update, the knights, and they'll be a little bit more competitive. I think the armiger build is probably the way forward now. I don't think the big knights are actually super efficient anymore, with the way the meta's moving and the way the tables were working. So that was a great win. 2 wins and 1 loss in day 1. I was quite pleased with that. I didn't know where I was ranking at this point, because Ace from Twisted Dice had locked the placings, which is fair enough. It keeps everybody guessing. There's no trying to fix games or anything like that. So yeah, I think that was probably, it was definitely interesting, should we say, and kept everybody on their toes and fighting every single game to get their best results. So day 2 came along, and I was up against a gentleman called Chris in the first game, and he was playing his Admech. Chris had told us he's also a YouTuber, does his own streaming and things like that. I didn't catch his channel, unfortunately, so I apologise for that, guys, and apologise to Chris. But he said he did a live stream where he randomly rolled a dice and picked his army, and this was the army he was taking. And he looked a very, very balanced admech. There was no flyers. There wasn't any 20-man blobs of warriors, rangers, or Sakari. He had some close combat guys in some boats, and doom crawlers and the doom riders and things like that. So he had the power. He had the good stuff, but he didn't have the overwhelming in the good priority of the game in that sense. So I took first turn again. It's sort of like a comically now. I think I took first turn in all 4 games so far. So it's providing me quite well in this. Again, I was able to get a bead on one of the vehicles and taking down some of his firepower. I think I took down one of the raiders, one of the boats essentially, which had a load of transport men in, and pushed him back a little bit further than he was expecting, because he was expecting that boat to come up, deploy, and stop me from moving into the centre. It was mission sweep and clear, so it was the centre objective for direct assault, that one, and then the 4 around the edges, and you deploy the corners. And I was able to put a bead onto the corners quite quickly and into the centre, and was able to hold the centre with my 10-man intercessor unit over his, I want to say he had preachers or something in the middle, and he did pretty well. He killed like 8 of them, but I used the 2 CP to keep him around, and I was OBSEC and he wasn't. So I was able to keep the centre, stop him from getting direct assault, because he took that as well. Yeah, he took direct assault. I stopped him from getting direct assault, and I was able to rack up. I mean, he didn't score anything on direct assault, unfortunately. Because of the way the firepower was working in the army, I was able to pin him back from his OBSEC units getting into the middle, and every time they tried to get into the middle, I was able to do the overwhelming firepower and take them off before he had a chance to take the objective from us. So it was a resounding win again for the Imperial Fist at 97-47 to myself. I was quite pleased with that. It was the highest score of the tournament so far for me. And after yesterday's result, I thought first game today, it's a great result getting the win. So, it was all going well. Then we went on to game 5. At this point, Ace had put out that there was 15 players at this stage of the game. So that's half of the pack still going into game 5 that still had potential to podium. And I was on table 3 at this stage. So I was like, okay, well, if you go 15, you go to table 1 to 7, there's a good chance I'm still in this. So I was quite pleased about that. I played a gentleman called Lee and his Emperor's Children, fantastically painted miniatures. He was running 2 Contemptors with the Volkites and their missile pods, 3 units of Terminators. I think they were at 9 apiece in each Terminator unit. Warp Talons and the other ones with the Lightning Claws as well. So you had the Warp Talons and then something. Sorry, I can't remember the other name, but they're basically exactly the same. That one's veterans and one's not. Then he had 3 units of cultists, or 2 units of cultists, a Warpsmith, a Chaplain essentially, and Lucifer. I think that's his name. Lucifer or Lupius or something like that. And I was. He also had a Death Claw with 10 Noise Marines in. That was the scariest. The 10 Noise Marines were absolutely scary. In this game, though, I didn't go first, and the Emperor's Children went first, and I did take Over Moments, which meant that going second for Over Moments is huge. It just means that you are able to ensure that you get something in the middle, and it isn't going to die, and it's going to get you that 2 points. And if you don't fail them around, you get 3. So it's almost a guaranteed 3 if you've got something to stick in the middle. Every turn, that is. And I had my eliminators that were able to just hold that centre with the train that was in there. There was a piece of cover, which is huge. Being able to hold the centre and get those 3 points constantly put us at a good stead. Yeah, those Terminators were hard to take down. He making amazing armor saves and things like that. His Noise Marines, I miscalculated on the number of shots I needed to take them out, and I misfired. So priority target was the issue in this one. I had a Contemptor that didn't fire at all in turn 1. I took down his Deathclaw with 1 Contemptor, and then I took down 9 Noise Marine with the rest of my firepower. But if I'd repositioned some of the firepower and did it in different order, I would have had enough to take down all 10 Noise Marines, which then in that scenario gives me it gives him 5 points on primary instead of 10, and it changes the game. In this one, it wasn't a loss, but it wasn't a win. We took a draw at 62 each, and I took 2 secondaries that I scored 0 points on. So, which is probably, I've been saying it to myself since then. If I had taken a different secondary, I could have scored 1 point, I could have won. But the secondaries I took pinned him back in his corner. I took Assassinate and Linebreaker, and that meant that his OBSEC units, which were the 2 Cultist units, were sat back in his deployment zone because he wanted to screen me out with the cheap screen units. And he screened out. I took Assassinate, which meant that all 3 Assassinate units were also screening out the back with a Contemptor protecting them, and then the Cultist that I couldn't see protecting them. So he pulled back everything to stop me from scoring my points, but that meant that his also, and it was battle lines, so this one's a really tough one to score on because you got 1 objective in each deployment zone and then 1 in no man's land, so there's only 4. If he was to move his OBSEC units onto there, he would overpower the objectives to my OBSEC, and I wouldn't be able to compete with the objectives in the middle. So having him pinned back in his deployment zone actually, I think, made the draw happen. Otherwise, I think it's a different game at that point. But I think taking it in this mission and the way he played it is the reason why we drawed, and not one of us took the overwhelming lead in it. So he played it really well. His Terminators were actually really tough with the exploding 5s and 6s now on everything, with stratagems and things like that. His Contemptors were just as brutal as mine, even because he can still give him +1 to wound, +1 to hit from a psychic power from Prescience, and then he can give him rerolls 1s to wound from Lucius. So it was just as effective as mine, if not sometimes better at some points of the game. So well played to him. Lee played amazingly well. It was very close. I mean, we were down to the last minute with the last roll of the dice, and it is a dice game, so I do feel sorry for Lee. It was a win to Lee at this point. He rolled a 1 and then re-rolled it into a 1, which took it to a draw. So it happens, and it went in my favour, unfortunately. But a draw's a draw. So thank you very much for Lee for that. It's amazing. So this was now quite contentious because I'd gone 3 games, 1 draw, 1 loss, and I was on the 3rd table. So going into our last game, I was quite happy what I'd done so far. But after that one, I was like, okay, I haven't scored enough points through my wins, or my losses, or my draws to be able to contend with the points that other people would have scored to win the tournament. So I was thinking at this stage, there's a good chance that I'm going to come top 10 going into my last game. And that's only if I win. If I lose it, I'm in the middle of the pack. So I get married up with a gentleman called Ashley. Ash brought Space Wolves, and he had the 3 Redemptors with the Plasma, the 2 Vanguard Veteran units with Storm Shields. He had an Eradicator unit, 2 Dreadnoughts with Storm Shields, with Frost Blades, essentially axes, monsters, 2 Wolfen units, 2 Assault Intercessors, I believe they're Wolfen units, and a Captain and Lieutenant. So it was quite a balanced list. I was quite. I needed 2 little doggos and a Infiltrator unit. So he took his Infiltrators down, stopping me from getting to the middle. We went over our secondaries, and we both had chosen the exact same secondaries. Over moments, we took over moments, engage on all fronts, and raise the banners high. This mission was retrieval mission, so it was the long edges, the one for hammer and anvil, hammer and anvil deployment. So there was a little bit more of a distance between us in the middle, and I was thinking, okay, so if I can castle up in one corner and try and push one way, he will push the other way, and we'll go to instead of doing hammer and hammer, we'll go to a dawn of war. The objectives will be fought over at the sides, at the ends, and that's exactly what happened towards the end of the game. I went second in this, which absolutely favoured me 100% with the over moments and raise the banners and engage in all fronts. It's a huge benefit with over moments to be able to go second. And I had the eliminators, and this one had no windows in the buildings, and there was a building in the middle that allowed us to be able to just jump out, do the shooting, jump back into the building, get over moments. maximise that 4 points, 3 points in the first couple of turns. And that's exactly what happened. I maxed it out by the end of turn 4. So turn 5, I didn't have to worry about one of my secondaries, and I got to push out a little bit more, which actually is what got me the win, is not having to worry about a secondary by the end of the game and just pushing out onto the objectives, and then having the firepower where I needed it to be. Because I was able to contest one when I left the centre objective, which gave us the swing on the game essentially towards the end of the game, end of that game. Ash played an amazing game. Because he went first, he didn't want to put all his redemptors. He didn't put any redemptors in line of fire for my turn. He was able to he hid them, and I don't know if that was a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's a different game if he pushes out and tries and advances those redemptors as fast as he could. He deployed them quite deep in his deployment, opposite mine, and corner to corner. So he had a long way to go with those redemptors. Now again, redemptors, plasma and all the little shooting bits is what does the firepower. But he took a successor to the space wolves, which meant that he was exploding on 5s and 6s with a stratagem, and they were exploding twice. So he really wants them in combat, doing like 10 hits, two go with 2 misses, and he's like doing 8 wounds with the redemptors in combat. So that's where he wants it to be. I found that the hard way when he came in and destroyed some of the Marines. That I pushed onto one side for a sacrificial, and he took it. So the intercessors again were key to this. He was a gent because I got to the shooting phase in round 3 and forgot to bring my reserves on, so I threw them in my corner reserves, not playing any part of the game. But he was a gent to let me do that. They didn't, like I said, that at the end of turn 3, they didn't do anything though for the rest of the game. They were outpositioned, outplayed, outmanned, but it's a gent to let us put them on. So I've got to give him credit for that. And then it came down again to another dice roll for the win for myself at the end. I needed to kill a lieutenant. I needed to roll a damage of 5 on a missile, and I got the 6. So that swings the game. I'm holding more objectives because it was the last model on the objective. I take the 15 points on primary, which tips the balance for the last game to me to 80 to 76. Ash played an amazing game, and going second is what really keyed us into the points wise for myself to be able to compete with him. Otherwise, I think he just walked all over me in this one. So great game. It was a great tournament. I'm sitting around now at the end of game 6 with 4 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Not too sure where I finished at this point because, of course, the placings are still hidden from us. And I was on table, I want to say table 7 at that point. Yeah, table 7. So I was like, okay, table 7, 14 players. There's a good chance I've still come top 10 with that win at the last there. So I was quite happy that that would put me top 10. And the placings came out and I came 5th. So I achieved the goal I set out to in the second goal, should we say, because the first goal was to win it. I didn't do that. So the second goal to come top 5 was huge in my opinion, and I thought that was amazing, especially with the Imperial Fist, considering a lot of the bigger YouTube channels, Art of War and things like that, would say that Imperial Fist are tiered at the bottom of the, would they call them D tier or E tier or something ridiculous? Or some of them might call them C tier if they go first, but I can understand that. We did really well, coming in top 5 out of 30 players, coming in the top 5. And that draw, if I don't take the draw and I take the win, I do podium. But hey, you've got to take your wins and your losses and where you can. And just be happy that you get to play Warhammer and you get your second result if that's what you're playing for. So great tournament. Now, what's the future for the tournament wise for us now? I don't have anything lined up until February, and that's a team tournament in February. I'll keep my eye out for anything that's happening. I've got birthdays and Christmas coming in December, and then the financial burn of December and Christmas for January. So we'll see. There might be something that pops up in RTT that I can get to. But last time I checked on the UK ITC, I think I was in Space Marines UK top 50. I might top 10. I think top 10. But that was before the US Open had finished. So, and I know there was a couple of UK players there. So we'll see. I'm quite happy with that. We will find out if there's anything coming up for us in the future. I've got a couple of guys lined up for some battle reports to do. The new Speedwire list from a friend called Nick will bring down. We'll play that. And then it's trying to get the team together and to do a few practice games with the list that we might be taking in February for the team, and then try and work out who's hopefully going to be playing what. I mean, we would like to have taken a Custody army. We don't know when their book's now going to be released. It said 2020. We don't know if it'll be out in time, and then to build the relevant models to compete. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out on what we're taking. But yeah, that's all to come in the future. So thanks very much for listening. If there's any questions or anything you want to know, drop us a link, drop us a comment, hit the like button, do all the usual stuff. If you like what we're doing, like what I'm doing, just put a comment saying, yeah, crack on, keep going. Yeah, that's a massive help. Thanks very much, guys, and we'll catch you later.